This is Transqat. What is Transqat? Transqat is a safe space. It's a place for respectful conversations about transgender issues. It's a place for queer people to come tell their stories. I'm host Clare McCarthy. Welcome to Transqat. Today's conversation, which is episode 40 by the way, is a departure from some of our issue-oriented ones. Shannon Kuffel is a trans woman who lives in the same town as me here in Southern Connecticut. She attended a presentation I was giving at our local public library. We got to talking afterwards, and she accepted the invitation to come tell her story. If you're listening and you'd like to add your story of trans joy or trans struggle to the Transqat archive, reach out. Let's set up a time to talk. And in that vein, I will be returning to TCNE's first event in Boston this January with my Let Your Story Be Told sessions. Attendees will have a 5-minute window to tell part of their story, and then I'll compile that into an episode later on. Here's Shannon.
Okay, so my name is Shannon Kuffel. I live in Connecticut. I am 27 years old, and I have been transitioning for the past 2.5 years. I started in January of, or at least medically transitioning for 2.5 years. I started in January of 2021.
Mid-pandemic?
Yeah, so mid-pandemic.
That must have been chaotic.
It wasn't as bad as you'd think.
Well, let's move the timeline back just a little bit, but before we do that, I want to point out that you and I met at an event at our local library.
Yes.
Where we realized that all of the coolest people in the room had blue rose tattoos on their forearms.
That is very true.
So where does this journey start?
So that's a weird question, actually. It could start from a number of places. Probably me talking to my mother when I was 13. I'm just going to preface by saying that I did not come out to myself and to everybody else as trans until I was 22 years old. And so when I was 13, I had been cross-dressing for about 2-ish years in secret. And then one day, and I'd been looking up online how to tell your parents that you've been cross-dressing. Mm-hmm. And so one day I picked up the courage and I went downstairs to my mother and said, "Hey, Mom, I have something to tell you. I have been cross-dressing for the past couple of years." And I was really scared because I didn't know how she would react to that. I know that my mother is not and has never and never will be homophobic or transphobic or anything like that. She is one of my biggest supporters. And so that's kind of where this starts.
And how did she react?
She was a little confused, but she asked me a few follow-up questions, such as, "Are you gay?" Answer at the time, "No." "Do you feel like you should have been a girl?" This one question stuck with me definitely more than anything, because at the time I said no. I, in my heart, believed, no, I am not a girl. I don't feel like a girl. But now that I look back at that time, yeah, I was wrong. I was repressing myself. I was hiding who I was from myself and from everybody else. Because for when I was very little, I would like to pretend I was a girl, like when I was by myself. And so I hid that from everybody. And then as I grew up a little bit more, I ignored that. I pressed it way, way down. And I think it manifested as I got a little older through the cross-dressing, and I felt comfortable wearing women's clothes, but I also felt comfortable wearing guys' or boys' clothes. So that was also a bit weird for me because I was like, what am I? Am I just cross-dressing? Is there anything else? But the "is there anything else" was kind of also pushed way, way down.
Sure, because that's a scary question. Let me ask you about the cross-dressing, because I have a history of that as well when I was starting at about that same age. How were you doing that? Did you have sisters? How were you getting the
No,
clothes?
I'm the oldest of two. I have a
Okay.
little brother.
Okay.
So it was just me, my brother, and my mom. My father passed away when I was 13 as well. And I think part of the cross-dressing was a mechanism to cope
Mhm.
with my dad getting sick and then eventually passing. Because it was a way for me to express myself more. It was a way for me to feel more vulnerable. Because
Mm.
when I presented as a girl to myself in my room, door closed, locks clicked, no one else could see. I felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I felt more comfortable to express my emotions, and I felt comfortable presenting that way to myself. But at the same time, I leave the room, I throw on jeans, shorts and a t-shirt. I present as a boy. I also felt perfectly comfortable. I felt fine with my gender identity. And that persisted for years. So throughout I finished middle school, kept cross-dressing. And when I came out to my mother, or about the cross-dressing at least, she asked those questions, as I said previously.
Yeah.
And she asked, can I do anything to help? Do you prefer? And I said, I don't know. So she, with a bit of talking, we decided that she would go to the store and buy me a couple pairs of women's underwear. And she did that. So she brought them home. She gave them to me. She said, here, these are yours. And I said, thank you. Because I, even then, preferred wearing women's underwear to men's.
Hmm.
And so I wore them on and off, mostly on weekends when I was staying at home, because I didn't want to wear them to school where I would, like, for gym, you'd get changed in front of the other boys. You
Right.
don't want them seeing, because then you'll be a fucking pariah. So this continued throughout all of high school. It went from wearing my mom's underwear here and there, like just sneakily, to trying, like, coming home. I was the only one at home because my mom was working. My brother went to a different school than me. So I'd come and he got home about an hour and a half later. So I'd come
So you
home,
had time.
yes, and I would try on some of my mom's dresses, her shirts, stuff like that. And I liked it. I'd pose in front of the mirror. I would spin in a circle because I love the feeling of like having the dress flow around my legs. And I imagine all trans girls do.
I'm raising my hand in solidarity, sister.
I have some other trans female friends, and they've all said the same thing.
Yeah.
I did not tell any of my friends until later. So I go through all of high school, and my senior year of high school, actually, I start going to a therapist about the cross dressing, just like to figure it out. Like what did it mean to me? And when I went to the therapist, she asked if I wanted to be known as my previous name or
Hmm.
the one I go by currently. At the time, I still went by enter
Yep.
name here,
Your dead name. Yeah.
dead name. And so I said, let's try Shannon because I liked the name. And so when I was there and presenting as female, she would refer to me as Shannon, and I liked it. But then I would also occasionally be referred to as my dead name, and I liked that. I was fine with it. Through that, I became more comfortable presenting as female, and so sometimes my mom would sit in on the sessions, and
Hmm.
like we invited her in, and we'd talk about it, and
Did
it
you
was good.
dress for the session?
I did. I did. I would wear um like sometimes I would have like a jacket on, but underneath I would have like one of my mom's blouses or something. And
Hmm.
this is with her permission. I did ask, and she said yes. As I said, I knew from a very young age, there's no way in hell this woman would ever be transphobic or homophobic or anything. Because I've been around queer people basically my entire life. One of my mom's best friends is gay. He has a husband. They have a son. They're like family to me. As I said, I've been around queer people my entire life. it's been good in the family because of that. And so
That helps. And I've heard that from other people that if when you're growing up, you can see that your parents interact with queer people or that this is just part of the normal tapestry of life, that it's at least a little bit easier to raise the issue. Whereas for folks who, have never met anybody like that or are
yeah.
pretty much limited to internet type stuff as far as getting information, that makes it harder. It's more of a struggle.
Yeah, that's what I've heard a lot of. And I'm really grateful that I was exposed to that from a young age.
So you
It,
get through high school.
yeah.
You by the end of it, you've got some therapeutic support.
And during that therapy, I came to the conclusion, or at the time, that, I think I'm bi. Because there was a boy in high school that I had a crush on. No way I'd tell him.
Right.
No way. And so we get to college. College is weird. College was a very weird time.
Where did you go if you don't?
I'm originally from Maryland. I
Okay.
moved to Connecticut for college. I went to the University of New Haven.
Oh, okay.
So small school, very accepting place. And so in college, I kept cross-dressing. I was in a dorm with 3 guys and myself. I told them. They were all fine.
Oh, brave. Wow.
Yeah. Because I was like, screw it. What's the worst that can happen? Like, because we're in Connecticut. I've known these guys for half a year now. They're all very nice. They're very accepting. I like them having that mentality of just, let's do it anyways. It's like, fuck it, we're doing it live.
Yeah.
Um, I made I made more friends in college. And in my freshman year, I did have a good group of friends that I did come out to for the cross-dressing stuff. And they were all super fine with it. There was one friend who was weird about it, but of course, there's always at least one. But even then, they didn't mind. They never said anything, and it was fine. My freshman year of college, I got a girlfriend. And after a few weeks of dating, or if not even that long, I told her, hey, I think before we continue, you should know that I am a crossdresser. And she said, cool. She was like, that's fine. That doesn't bother me. She was a bit weird. She was a bit confused though. So I explained it to her, and she said, if you come out as trans, I don't know if we'd be able to still be together though. I was at the time, hadn't even really crossed my mind that I could be trans. And I was just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't think I ever will. That was a lie. Uh, at the time, not a lie.
I was going to say that's a little harsh.
Yeah.
we grow into these things.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So at the time, had no idea that any of this would happen. So she supported me. She also just went, just don't try on any of my stuff. And I was like, no, of course. Like that's rude. Wouldn't do that. She was also a lot shorter than me. So we kept dating, and I had some other friends who I told over the next few years. And as I got farther along through college, one of my friends would occasionally do my makeup for me. Like I'd go over to her dorm. She was a year ahead, and she would do makeup, and I really liked it. And it made me happy. And yeah, and so her entire room knew, and that was fine because I liked all of them.
now,
And
was
then
this kind of daily makeup the way you would
no,
if you were going off to the office, or was this kind of
it,
glamorous?
it was more casual makeup, not really a big deal kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Just like basic, helping my face look more feminine.
Yeah.
And then I think we did that my sophomore year a bit and my junior year. So then the cross-dressing and everything continued. We go through the rest of freshman year. We go and After freshman year, I tell my mom, hey, still cross-dressing. And she was like, okay, why are you telling me this? And she's like, I don't really care. Like, that's fine. So then we get to sophomore year, same thing. Continue cross-dressing, more open with it, with my roommates and everything. And then we get to junior year.
Okay.
Junior year is where things start, for me, getting a bit more what's going on. I'm presenting as male. I'm presenting as female sometimes, but like boy moding, I guess. So
Okay.
presenting as female, kind of. So wearing some more feminine shirts, pants, like a hair clip here and there, stuff like that. I'm still dating the same girl at this time. I talk it through with her, and I tell her this, that sometimes I'm identifying as male. Other times I'm identifying as female. Sometimes dead name, sometimes Shannon. I was identifying as Shannon more than dead name, at least by the end. Just taking a breather for a second.
So when you were in college and you were doing this cross-dressing, were you going out into, the into New Haven to do things dressed as Shannon, or was this
No,
exclusively in the dorms
it
or
was in the dorms on campus.
okay, so
And
being safe, being cautious. Yeah.
yes, very cautious, except for my friends who knew and were very supportive and loving. I'm still friends with a lot of them. And so I do some research and I come to the conclusion I'm gender fluid. Sometimes identify as male, sometimes identified as female. And that's how I identified for the next 3 years. Junior year, senior year, and my first year after graduating college. After college, I get a job and I'm working while presenting as male. And then I say, you know what? I can't keep doing that. So I tell my boss and my coworkers. They're very lovely people. They were great. And I said, hey, I'm gender fluid. I identify as female sometimes and sometimes as male. So sometimes I'll come into work presenting as a girl instead of a guy. And they're like, okay, that's fine. The boss was a bit more iffy about it
Okay.
because his logic for me wanting me to present more as male than anything was my own safety. He claimed it wasn't for my safety because he said he didn't want anybody to harm me or anything like after work. Reasonable, like, but I personally felt like it was more of, I don't want you to present as female at work. More of like, I don't want you to do that.
Okay.
And here is me justifying why.
What sort of industry are you in? What kind of work are you doing?
So I got my bachelor's degree in marine biology. So I was working at a small aquarium in Maryland. Yeah, it was in a good area. I doubted I would ever get like assaulted or anything, but you never know. So I did that for about a year and then COVID hit. So during the time I was at this job, I was presenting as female and as male sometimes. And it was fine. It was perfectly fine. And this aquarium did summer camps and like day camps. And so I was presenting as female during one of the day camps. And one of the kids asked one of the other, or like the head counselor, educator, why does Miss Shannon have have a deeper voice and like it looks more like a guy? And the teacher just said, well, I told her that it's okay to like explain and stuff because I feel
Mhm.
comfortable, and I think for little kids it's better for them to understand. She said that sometimes people are born in the wrong body. Like a girl could be born in a guy's body, and a guy could be born in a girl's body. And the kid went, "Oh, okay," and just went off to playing on the
And that
playground.
was all the explanation they needed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And during the time with these camps, there were a couple little kids or younger kids who were trans as well. Like little girls who, like, you can tell sometimes. And like I would ask the parents, hey, what their name and pronouns, and just like the polite stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, it's this is their name and these are their pronouns. And we were like, cool. And so the entire camp, we referred to them as such and such, or like she, her, etc. And sometimes when you would be like, okay, girls, gather up and like include them with it, you could see them, like you could see the joy on their face
Just
of
light up.
being included. And it was really happy. And I was always happy to see that.
Was there any sense that they appreciated being able to see a counselor that was at the time gender fluid?
I think so, yeah. I think so
Yeah,
with that.
feel more okay. I can be safe. I can be comfortable in this space because there's Miss Shannon.
Yeah, I think so. At least I hope so. So then did this job, and then COVID hit. Later that year, I came out on Facebook as gender fluid, like officially came out as gender fluid. So everybody knew. And everyone was like, okay, that's cool.
So at this point, Facebook has made that switch to all the different gender options
Mhm.
to it.
Yeah. I was really happy that it does that.
A non-gender
Yes.
identity question for you.
Yes. Please ask all the questions you want.
What happens in an aquarium during the pandemic? How do all the
So
critters get what
for
they
the most
need?
so for the most part, you would have one person, one or two people in at most. They would have masks on and they would just go and just feed the organisms
Mhm.
and clean the tank. And somebody would come in and clean the tanks on certain days, and they would also do the feedings. So it was very so. And when I say aquarium, it's very small, not like the Baltimore Aquarium, which is massive.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. It's like a large room
Oh, okay.
with
All right.
tanks. I say aquarium, we're putting
Well,
quotes.
they're the air quotes on it. You got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And is organisms the way you refer to them?
Yes, the organisms. We always just refer to the animals as the organisms. I think it was 2019 that I came out as gender fluid on Facebook. And then it was 2020. So I went out to dinner and just like a brewery with some friends who all knew about me and they were all super loving. And I'm still friends with all of them. And I went over to one of their houses afterwards. And this was on National Coming Out Day. And so on National Coming Out Day, I went over to my friend's house who they'd come out a few years earlier as trans. And they're still a good friend, still really like them. And so they helped me type up a message like on Facebook. And then after reviewing it a couple times, changing some things here and there, posted it saying, hey, everybody, I know I don't post much, but this is me coming out. I am gender fluid. So that basically means I identify as a girl sometimes, identify as a boy sometimes. I go by Shannon when I'm identifying as a girl. I go by dead name when I'm identifying as male. And so for about the next while, I was identifying still as gender fluid. And I was seeing a therapist because after college, I I was away from a lot of my college friends. I was away from my girlfriend. This is the same one who I had been dating since freshman year. And so it was a bit hard on me that, and then also dealing with I started dealing with gender dysphoria a lot more. Dysphoria and dysmorphia mostly. And so I started seeing a therapist who worked with queer youth and queer adults. Through that, I started going there as my identifying as dead name. And then after a couple weeks, I noticed that I was going there identifying as Shannon every single time. And so I still identified as gender fluid, and it was mostly a way for me to vent my frustrations talk about how I was feeling, all that stuff you normally do with therapy. And then we started discussing, do you think you might actually you might be transgender? And I was like, I don't know. I think I might, but I don't want to say for certain yet. And so I struggled with that for months.
Let me ask you about the dysphoria and the dysmorphia. That's really the first time because up till now, the way you've been describing it, it sounds like dressing and then identifying as Shannon is a comfort, is a way for you to express yourself. And so everything you've said up until this point has been positive, positive, positive.
Yeah, because up to
Tell me
this,
about what that feels like. What changed? What were you
okay.
feeling?
So up to this point, I was happy. I really was happy identifying as a male. And then sometimes identifying as female. I did combat sports like all of growing up. I did karate from like second through 12th grade, and then continued a little bit in college. I'd always been surrounded by guys who could kick my ass and girls that could kick my ass. Loved all those people. They were like my family. And then I swam. So they're all of growing up, throw in a pair of trunks, throw off my shirt, jump in the pool. I'm happy as a clam.
So that being topless, being in a Speedo, not a problem.
Never Speedo. Avoided that. Just
Oh,
just
really?
trunks. Yeah.
See, in my day, I was also on the swim team.
Okay. Yeah.
And
No.
I dreaded that. Oh.
I imagine. I can only imagine. Like I was happy being topless. Like in college, my freshman year and sophomore year at the very least, I was fine being like shirtless around my friends, my roommates. One time, one of my friends was in the room and like she was just hanging out there waiting for one of our other friends to get back. I come out of the shower with like a towel wrapped around like my waist and I walk in. She just looks at me, like looks down a little bit, and I said, hey, eyes are up here. And she said, I never thought I would get my eyes are up here from a guy. And like as I said, I was comfortable in my body. At least I thought I was. Like I was happy, you know? But looking back, yes, I was happy, but there was something there. There was something missing. Something felt off. And as I look back throughout my entire life, something was always off. And I didn't know what. My therapy after college helped with that. I realized the part of me that was off was a girl being suppressed. And with the cross dressing, I was happy with that because I was allowing her to come out, to be present. And then after that, throw on my guy clothes, push it down some more. Don't think about it. And I didn't like put like a wall up. No thoughts about that because they just weren't there then. So therapy helped me come to the conclusion that there was something weird and that I had put these mental walls up around that part of myself. And so, as I said, I had started going to therapy almost full time as Shannon and always referred to as Shannon. Was happy to do it. I loved wearing skirts, dresses, just feminine clothing in general. And I started growing my hair out.
Since this is an audio medium, I need to point out that Shannon has long, beautiful hair, down.
It goes down like halfway down my back at this point.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. Untamable. So when I was younger, I had long hair as well, but it was shaggy. But I liked it long. And then later high school and college, short hair. Not gonna lie, I looked good with short hair and as a guy. And when we were going through therapy and I came to the conclusion that I was trans, it was hard. It was so unbelievably hard. I was still with the same girl and I didn't know how to tell her. And she's never not been honest with me. So what clicked for me to knowing from like wondering and thinking about it or like thinking that I was trans to knowing, I was at a party with my mom and a bunch of family friends. I was looking around and over there's all the guys. They're all tall, fairly large guys, at least some of them I'd known since I was little. And then they're staying around drinking beers, talking about like sports or something. I don't know. And then near the kitchen were the women standing around in beautiful outfits, dresses, like blouses and pants, heels, like looking more refined. And I was looking back between the two groups, and it hit me. I cannot see myself growing up and being in that group, the group of the men. Then I look, I can see myself over there with the women, being one of them. And it just kind of hit me like a bus. And so I took some time to think about it and process my thoughts. Talked with my therapist and said, "Hey, so this happened. I know I'm trans." And during this time of me figuring it out was lots of tears for me, for my girlfriend, and the two of us were long distance ever since college because she lived up here in Connecticut and we saw each other maybe 2 to 3 times a year. And it was really hard. So, but we FaceTimed every night. Almost every night, one of us would cry. And this was going on for about a month and a half. And so one day, about a week after realizing and talking with my therapist, I went down to my basement. I sat on the floor and pulled out my phone. And I called her and said, "Hey, hun, I'm trans." And she cried. And I cried. And we did talk a little. And then she hung up her phone, calmed down a bit, and she called back. She said, "Hey, I don't think I can be with you anymore." And I was like, "I know. And I'm so sorry for all this pain that I've put you through." And I loved her. I really did love her. And I know she loved me. And so we broke up. And it was one of the hardest things I ever went through. I was depressed. But about a week and a half later, and we kept talking because she said, "I don't want to lose you from my life. You are one of my best friends, if not my best friend." And I was like, "You are my best friend too." And so we would just still talk about like the same stuff, like what's been going on, and like how's work been? How are you dealing with COVID? So then, as I said, week and a half later, she calls me up. "I can't do this. I need you in my life because I love you. I realized that I love you no matter how you identify. And I actually do want to be with you still." So we got back together. And we have been together ever since. I love her, and she's great.
And you are engaged, I
Yes.
believe.
So later that year, I came out as trans. And I did not start. And so this is 2020 now that I came out officially as transgender. And so I started socially transitioning. I started wearing women's clothing. Started wearing like a bra full time. I started, well, and I used like breast forms, so I looked like I had a woman's body instead.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for about a year. And then I was talking with a doctor and said, "I want to start hormone replacement therapy. I want to get on estrogen, spironolactone, those things." And so a year later, in January, I did. So January of 2021, I started taking medication to permanently-ish change my body into that of a woman's. I've been on that ever since, and I've been really happy with it. Not as many changes as I would have liked.
Let me ask you about your voice because you have a terrific voice. Have you done voice therapy? Have you done any
No,
training, or this is just
no,
you?
this is just all self-practiced. So like this is what I normally sound like. This is my normal voice.
Okay.
I
And you
do,
just
yeah, and so I do raise it at work, at my current job. It is, or just in general at work, it's hard to keep this up, especially when you're all over the place in a lab. So at work, I just sound like this the entire time. But I do prefer having a lighter, higher voice. I started taking medication in January of 21. I had been doing like some jobs here and there to like save up some money, and then also like applying to jobs for my major. I got a job offer for a seasonal position up here in Connecticut in early-ish 2021. I pack up my stuff and I move up here and I move in with my girlfriend. And so moved up here and was doing that job. The entire time I was doing the job, I was taking the meds, so my body was changing. I was growing my hair out, so it was getting long. So it had been about a year of me growing my hair out at this point. And then for this job, I had to wear just jeans and this god awful bright yellowish green
Oh,
like a
oh,
polo shirt
yeah.
because I had to be visible to everybody. And so for the most part, I wore a sweatshirt over it or like a jacket. Because at this point, I started to have to wear like a bra, like full time, like just like a sports bra. So, and I hid being trans from my boss and from all the people I interacted with because my job was talking with the public. And so it was annoying having to hide that part of myself from them, like for my job, which is full time. And then I finished this job. It was only a seasonal stint, so it was about 7 months. So then I applied to a bunch of other things, and then I got another seasonal job with the state of Connecticut, working at a hatchery, so a trout hatchery. This was strange. I didn't know how like the people there would react because from what I'd heard from my girlfriend who had worked with hatchery people before, because she was also doing seasonal work with the state of Connecticut, they're a lot more, I think you would probably say typically like on the right. So people you would think would not be very accepting of queer folk and especially trans women. I once again said screw it, and I came out to my boss there. Came out to both bosses and all of my coworkers. Every single one of them. It's like, okay, Shannon, that's fine. Super nice, super caring, and I was surprised. I was out the entire time I was there to everybody, and it was great. It was my first job where I could be fully myself, and even then, it was still t-shirt and jeans, hair and ponytail, but I was still identifying as female and living my life as Shannon, and it was great. It was so good. And then did that entire job and it ended. Before that job started, I asked my girlfriend at the time to marry me. We were on a trip and I asked her and she said yes. And so, as I said earlier, and what she had told me, I love you no matter how you identify. Whether you're male, female, something in between, I still love you. And I think everybody needs to find a person like that.
That is so wonderful. I'm so happy for you both.
Thank you.
It's throughout throughout your entire story, I am consistently amazed by your honesty. I mean, it's an honesty that's rooted in courage. But I mean, from 13, when you go talk to your mom, uh, that your preference is to be honest about this side of you, this part of you, this expression, and then to say, now, you guys deal with it as you need to, but here's the truth. And I admire that so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It was not easy any of those times telling anyone. My stomach was in knots. I have a bit of anxiety about just going to people with things that to me are heavy topics, and that was one of them. So my stomach was in knots the entire time, but it all paid off. And I know I'm lucky. I'm really lucky that I have such a loving and supportive family. My mom, my brother, all of my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and even my grandmother. My grandmother was super supportive too, which was great.
I'm very glad to hear that. Last question. We
Yes.
have to go back
Okay,
to
yes.
this. All right. So we both
The
have
blue
blue
rose
roses.
tattoos.
And yours, if I remember correctly, yours has words inculcated into it. So
Yes.
tell me about the significance of your blue rose tattoo.
So I got this tattoo last summer, so the summer of 22. So on the stem, it says Michael E. Kuffel. That is my father's name. As I said earlier, my father passed away when I was 13, so I didn't get as much time with him as I wanted, and as I should have. But even then, he was such a big part of my life, and I miss him so much. And so I wanted to always have at least a piece of him with me. So I contacted my mom before I got this tattoo and asked her if she could send me a copy of his signature. And so she did. So I now have a identical copy of his signature tattooed on my arm.
And the blue rose, as opposed to any other color, because blue roses don't exist in nature.
Yeah, exactly. So I just really like the color blue, to be completely honest with you. There's not really a significance. I forgot this little part of it, and until I just looked right back at it. The tattoo has another branch coming off of it with 3 leaves on it, and that has 2 meanings. My mom, my brother, and me. So the 3 of us are still together with them. But the other meaning to me is Uncle Don, Aunt Sue, and Aunt Sandy. My dad's 3 siblings, older siblings. He was the youngest of 4. They've all also passed away. So they're all with him on there too. And so it has that second layer of symbolism to me. It's a way for me to remember all of them.
Do you and your fiance have a date?
Nope. We do not have a date. We do not have any plan to have a date for any time soon. We are still trying to settle down ourselves. So get a stable job, a place, like a permanent place of our own. Well, not even a permanent place of our own, but just somewhere for us. We need to just be comfortable with where we are at the time in order to even start thinking and planning getting married. She's great. She keeps me in line.
A few housekeeping items before we go. If you didn't make it to the Blue Orchid for our first game night, you missed some fun. We played Password and basically laughed our asses off. I was the Alan Ludden-esque arbiter for the evening. I was definitely not prepared for the raging controversy over whether chlamydia was an acceptable clue. We'll be putting on a second game night on December 15th, also at the Blue Orchid. We'll be playing Pictionary this time, so bring your art skills and your guessing skills and join us for a queer-forward evening in which I can almost guarantee the word chlamydia will be making a return appearance. My game night collaborator, Sam Giardina, whose photography exhibit opened at the Orchid that same night, put together a lovely gallery of shots from the evening. I'll put the link in the show notes. Take a look and reach out and give him some love. Lastly, a shameless pitch for my short story, Always Love Me. It's available for Kindle for 99 cents from Oliver Hebert Books. You can find the link on the publications page at transqat.com. This has been Transqat. I'm Clare McCarthy, still struggling with the head cold. Thanks for listening. Let's talk soon.
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece.
And you've just been listening to Transqat. It is made by one of my favorite people in the world, Clare McCarthy.
Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC.
Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.
Join us on the web at transqat.com.
That's TRANSQAT.com.
QAT.com.
QAT.com.
There you'll find links to Transqat, the blog,
writing projects,
speaking engagements,
and our PayPal donations page.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monkeys.
Monies.
Your monies.
Your monies.
Not monkeys.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monies. Any monkeys will be gratefully received as well.
Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
On TikTok, we are at The Real Transqat.
Want to tell your story on air?
Or ask Claire a question?
What is the deal?
She has all the answers.
Or suggest a guest or topic for an upcoming episode.
Use the contact page at the website
or email her directly at crmtranscat@gmail.com.
crmtranscat@gmail.com.
And Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.